verse 8. Start again?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Today is December 8th. Time, and please register that time, which is now 10:02. Thank you for joining us for today's Internal Affairs Oversight Panel public meeting. My name is Anthony Fugate, and I'm the chair of IAOP, which is the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel. As a note, this meeting is open for the public to attend and is being recorded through Zoom. Zoom has been set up for video recording purposes only and is not an option for public participation at this time. If anyone needs a transcript of this meeting afterwards, please reach out to the OPAT staff at opat@boston.gov. Again, opat@boston.gov. Public comment will not be held during this meeting. You are welcome to submit any comments that you have to, as I say, the OPAT email, opat@boston.gov. And they will be acknowledged at the next OPAT Commission community meeting. First thing I'd like to do this morning is to do roll call. Again, I am the chair, Anthony Fugate, present. Ms. Christina Miller.
Present.
Mr. Eron Hackshaw.
Present.
Mr. Glenn Tron.
Present.
Ms. Jamaica Hobbs. Not present. This morning, we will run through the agenda that you can see on the screen. That's there. Each board member has a copy of the agenda in their binder. Our first order of business today is to approve the meeting minutes from the IAOP October 6, 2025 meeting. If individuals had a opportunity to review it, and if so, I'll accept a motion at this time.
Move to adopt the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Christina Miller,
Yay.
Mr. Eron Hackshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Glenn Tron,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Accepted. This time we'll move on to the Executive Director's Report. The chair acknowledges Executive Duran, my contact Director Avandro Carvajal to present his report to IAOP, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I also sometimes, I just say ED because my tongue actually gets twisted when I try to say Executive Director sometimes. But I'm Avandro Carvajal again, and I'm the ED of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, also known as OPAT. And I want to welcome all of you to our fourth meeting of the year for the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel. I think actually Michael can confirm this if I'm wrong, but this might be the first year that we've had all meetings happen without any cancellation. We've had forums and all meetings. Same thing happened with the CRB, the Severe Review Board earlier. We had our last meeting earlier last month. We had the last meeting. So for me, I think it's really, and I've been here for almost 2 years now in May. I really want to take the time to appreciate them. I think it's a pivotal moment for us as a team to do this meeting. As you can see, and I'll dive more into that too. The room is full. We have a team. We have a team ready to go into 2025. So I'm super excited that we're able to have this final meeting of this year. Before I begin today, though, I'd like to ask for a brief moment of silence in honor of a great man, the founding chair, the founding commissioner of OPAT, of Internal Affairs Oversight Panel, IAOP, Judge Harris, who unfortunately passed away October 15th. He was a good friend to all of us, many of us in this room, a giant, certainly in the legal field in the city of Boston, and beyond that, a great man. fact, the Boston Globe described them amongst many writings and honors that I saw online. I thought this was very suited for him, which was he was the greatest advocates for young people this city has ever seen. He worked as a high school teacher, a probation officer, before then becoming an attorney and a public defender, and later legendary juvenile court judge. And certainly, then we know his impact. In fact, for the purpose of this work, we know that he was one of the people that represented one of the suspects in the Stewart case, 1989. The legendary case that I'm sure I don't need to go into details, but if you watch it, the documentary on Netflix, you will see him being the man that he was. And that I think that was really solidified, exemplified what he was, which is somebody that really believed in representation and came in with strong advocacy. So, and for me personally, I would say that he was a mentor, a good friend, someone that I could always call upon and call upon. And in fact, he was one of the few people that called me early when this agency was looking for another ED. He essentially convinced me to come in. And I will miss him dearly. So I wanted to, no amount of time really can be enough for this man, but I wanted to take this opportunity, particularly with this board, to give him his flowers, as folks say. Thank you. Thank you. Big Moon's house. And before I move on to the rest of the stuff that I have some important updates for you. We are thinking of the agency about how to continue to honor him in the future. We have some ideas already cooking, as they say, so feel free to pitch in as well. We have some thoughts in action. You can come to me directly. As I always do, to move on to some of the business, the critical thing that I think I've been focusing on is every meeting I think I've opened up with this is capacity building and hiring of staff. And I will say again, particularly sitting here, I think last time we were here, there were 7 of us. We had 1 investigator. Now we have 3 investigators. I think we onboarded 5 people since the last meeting we had. So I think at least about 4 to 5. And for me, again, as we transition into next year, 2026, I really feel like the rebuild process is now closing. And then now we can take things to the next. Okay? And so, and I'll just mention again, because we have all of them present here, so you get to know them at least for the first time. We've been working closely with all of them. But I wanted to just kind of mention their names and have them briefly say hi. We'll go from there. Okay? On October 20th, our new community engagement coordinator, Corey Jordan, started with the agency. Corey's over there. Corey comes from the state. He actually worked for Rep. China Tyler's office as a legislative aide, legal constituent engagement. And I will say, and I'll say it to you directly, Corey, you will see that Corey's, I've been saying, he's acing it. I'm doing a lot more stuff in the community. Coffee hours are happening, and I'll mention some of those groups as we go. And in fact, I have at 1 o'clock, we'll have something that I have to do today to engage Charlestown High students in Charlestown. So I think I'm really excited to have him on board. He's been here for a month.
No, 2 months now.
Yeah, that's going so fast, right? Yeah. But he's been a major addition to the team. Next, we have 2 new investigators that started November 3rd, about a month. First is Mary Kay O'Brien. Hi, Mary.
Hi, everybody.
Nice
to meet you.
Mary Kay comes from the federal government, Department of Homeland Security. Particularly, she has 17 years of investigative experience doing background investigations for potential hires federal level. She's been here for almost a month now, and we welcome her. Secondly, we have Parker Bowman, who is coming from BPD's operational division, actually. So very familiar with some of the internal process there, which I think that you learn, as we know, that can be very helpful to have an inside look in terms of how things work in there. And he also has, I forget, I didn't write that down. I know he has a master's degree in investigation. And he's hit the ground running as well. Parker, say hi.
Well, good morning, everyone.
morning.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And before I move on to the last individual that joined our team, I did want to give a shout out to Diana Vergara, who again has been the sole investigator for at least 6 months. And she's now officially a senior investigator. She is 3 years in the agency at least, one of the original investigators. So we're happy to still have that history and someone here with now senior experience. Finally, and certainly not the least, we recently had our Director of Finance Administration join us, Shonda Green. Shonda, hi. Shonda starting November 17th. She brings tremendous operational experience and expertise. She worked for the state for 8 years, and before that was Director of Administration. Excuse me. She did IT support specialist work at for 19 years. She again, I'll just briefly highlight because she's been here 3 weeks now, and as she checked in with me this morning, I said I'm relaxed. We had one example briefly. We had a heat issue on a Friday, and this morning we have heat. And she walked that down the whole path. So a lot of, and I explain this because there's so many gaps and details that happen in the work that sometimes, unfortunately, in the past we all, between us and Cheyenne and Mario, those of us that have been here, and Michael, we have to be pull it. And Mario says we were playing zone because we didn't have sufficient people to cover all the bases. Now we can play more man, right, as we continue to grow. So I just wanted to pause it because I know, that's been a struggle for us because we've been short-staffed for a significant period of time. And after that, I'll briefly, again, I don't need to sort of go too much in detail on this, but the community engagement, as I said, particularly since Corbin came on board, has continued to evolve. We continue to do the open door days every first Wednesday of the month, which we did one, I think, last week. And we continue to do our bi-weekly executive director coffee hours. We've been to Rosendale most recently. As I mentioned, I think actually we went to Southie, went to East Boston. These are some of the neighborhoods we hadn't been before. And in fact, next week, right, December 19th, next Friday will be. This is Rosendale.
No, that's Friday is Fenway.
Fenway, thank you. Penista Cafe, which I guess is over in Fenway. And then in January, you don't line them up for January. I won't say where we're going, but we're going to be in Dorchester back in January, going forward in January. Finally, in that space, again, if you haven't followed us, for those of you on social media, please, particularly our LinkedIn page, our Twitter page is active. I think our Instagram page is also active. So Corey has certainly been, keeping the space active for us on social media. The last thing I'll mention that is more work related than substance for you all is a couple of things. One, the commission, the OPAT commission, as you know, and we have the 2 chairs along myself that belong to the OPAT commission. We have been meeting regularly as well, and hopefully we'll have a meeting before the end of the year as our final meeting. And we have updated some of the regulations. This is again one of the big tasks that we have going forward. And I wanted to update one that I think is helpful for you to know is that one of the things which I'm glad this is sort of very on point now. You will see that you have the letter from the commissioner about one of the cases, right? And one of the things I think we discussed last time when we had a discussion around policy and some of the gaps was around the fact that we don't necessarily get responses from the commissioner on IAD, IAOP reviews, and number 2, that there was no sort of timeline for those either, right? And same thing, unfortunately, for the CRP. So one of the things that we settled upon was that going forward, the commission will have 45 days upon receipt of the letter from us to respond. so that at least we have, we give them that 45 days, and if we don't get those letters, we can go back and push for them. So that's one of the things, again, simple but very effective, that we were able to vote on the last meeting. The other thing that I want to update for you too is that obviously, an email went out this time and did last time. So going forward, I think this is again something in the process that's going to be improved, is that you'll have the opportunity to come in, ahead of time, right, to review the files before the decision, before you come in on bail. And I know obviously it depends on your schedule, but the email, you will get an email essentially 7 days before the meeting starts, and we'll invite you with a time frame for you to come in and review at your time, right? Spend an hour or two reviewing the cases. Okay. And obviously this is not required, in a sense, but you will be paid, and I think it helps for to review the cases, so you have that sort of advance notice. A couple more things I'll mention and I'll close. Okay. I did say one that we received a letter from the commissioner about, on one of the cases that you addressing one of the cases, but we did not receive a letter in response to that automatic appeal that we settled upon last meeting, right? So we ended up sending that letter out to them and said, this is, what the board voted on, which actually, I don't know if we put the letter back in there, but perhaps we should have maybe print it out so you can see the letter that did go out to them. And again, it's an automatic appeal situation, which shouldn't really be debatable, but we haven't have a response in that space. And my plan, going into next year is to sort of hopefully circle back on some of these policies. And then we talked about the other one was the random appeals, right? That we, hopefully we get to dive into that next meeting. Okay, I wanted to just kind of have you come in, have some cases, close out the year, breathe a little bit, and then sort of really start pushing, right? Some of these spaces that we already start teasing up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I think the last thing I'll say, because I think it's not necessarily related to, well, it doesn't impact the work directly, but I think it's important for you to know is that obviously one of the concerns that we have within the community of the city of Boston, perhaps throughout the country, is about the rise in ICE activity in the country, particularly impacting we know in the city of Boston. Have one of the things we've done, and I think you have this in your packet as well, in terms of the board in the board materials packet, tab apps. We updated our intake that essentially says, gives individuals ability to say, I was in an incident involving ICE, and particularly we're watching for those situations where BPD may also be involved, right? Which again, obviously, that's where we are more aligned in terms of the work that we have to do, but we just collect information around ICE. Okay. Finally, on that note, again, going into next year, I teased this out a little bit last time, is that we're going to try to figure out an intake for appeals as well. Because most of the appeals have come in direct appeals for this. It's been through calls and through emails and things like that. But I think having a form trying to capture what the individual's saying, in addition to, again, doing the phone calls and other things, would be helpful. Because the form primarily right now, if you go online, the form is just CRB, like investigation complaints come in. But I think we want to have the space, even for people to go online as well, to file an appeal. So we may create a separate form for that as well. So those are things that hopefully, again, we'll have a draft, certainly, right, Michael, for the next meeting, and we'll go from there. Okay.
But just to clarify, folks can submit via our online form right now. They just check. They can check this is an appeal, but the substance of the form is geared more towards a CRB complaint. But nonetheless, we have been receiving complaints through the online form, receiving appeals through the online form, and that would be the case until the new form, which is IAP specific.
All right. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate you doing that. I think that's all I had for now. I've taken some 20 minutes to do this, and again, I appreciate really the time to reflect on the work that we've done. And as I said, really, this is probably the most relaxed I've been at one of these meetings, because the support team is really there, and And, we built the capacity to do the work and really looking forward to 2026. So I appreciate all the hard work that you all have been doing, scheduling, coming in here and doing these cases. And I expect more. Now we have 3 investigators, expect more cases to come, in the next quarter, okay? Mr. Chairman, thank you. Happy to take any questions as always.
Thank you very much, Director Calhoun. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I do have a series.
I'm sorry?
I have a series of questions. Very sorry, but
It's okay.
the first question is how big is the internal affair at the police department?
Actually,
I did come from their office. I believe it's made up of different teams. They do have some, I believe, outreach externally, but not too vast as other departments are. But unfortunately, I don't have a specific number.
I will, my guesstimate, and this is based on conversations I've had with them, they're investigators of police officers, right?
Right.
I think they live typically sergeant detectives.
Yours is our
Yeah, thank you. So this is just kind of framing based on my knowledge here. And then they have actually they got a new Superintendent Dayhill, who started about 6 months ago with them. Actually not started, but took that position. He's been there for a long time. He also, within his position, he has a deputy. And then, I think below that is the police officers that do the investigation. And I want to say at least there's a handful of them. So they're not the largest shooting, as you can imagine. But I'm happy to sort of have that, hopefully answer next time more concise in terms of what infrastructure.
That is only a preliminary type of question. The second question would be how big is the caseload there? And do they triage their investigative work based on the kind of cases they receive?
I don't know. Actually, the second part of the question, I don't know if I understand, so I like to ask for clarification. But their caseload, this is just from the last conversation and email that I had from Dayhill. I know they had about Mike, how many cases did you have complaints last year?
137 complaints.
Right, so there were like 5 or 6 below that in terms of their total numbers. So they're designed, like particularly again on the CRB side. So they get complaints from individuals from the community as well. So they're sort of have 130 sort of complaints. And I think I have this number written down, but they function kind of like what we do in terms of internal. They have a few investigators. Most of them, again, are police officers. All of them are police officers. And also the other thing I should know, because I know this has been also something that they've had to adapt to, and it's a challenge for them, is that they also have posts. Their posts as in the peace officers training it, peace officers standing training. Yes, thank you. Yeah, the acronyms are always twisted, but they have posts, which is the OPAT at the state level. They have their own requirements, so they constantly have to be reporting to the post as well.
And there's, back when I was in the DA's office, there's anti-corruption.
That's right.
Correct.
And
Thank
internal
you.
affairs,
Thank
right?
you.
So it's a larger, and anti-corruption is actual criminal conduct investigations versus violations of their policies.
Right.
And so they do split them up that way.
I see.
So if we
Right.
take both of those, it is, I think, a little larger.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Ms. Miller, is, I don't typically think of the corruption side on our side, because in a sense, that's, it's a criminal investigation. You'll have the DA involved, right? We're more on the internal policy side, right? So that's why I'm not sure, our ordinance doesn't address that. I mean, obviously we're designed for disciplinary actions. So if things are kind of iffy, it'll go to corruption. But if it's just a policy, internal conduct, rule violation, which, the rules that we have, that they have, internal rules, then it'll stay more in the internal affairs division, which, but it sounds like they're all under the same umbrella in these.
Right.
That's good to know. I didn't know they were under the same umbrella. I thought they were completely separate there.
Yeah.
So we are dealing primarily with the conduct side rather than the corruption side, I understand. that.
Yes, yes,
And we'll be dealing with the appeals of those type of cases.
correct.
The concern I have is even the letter, even the commissioner made it that it liked the investigation, the finding, even in a very simple case
Yes,
that took from 2013 till, you know, and then from 2013 until that's very, very unacceptable on their part. And we receive it like what, 2013, 2019, 6 years. And then we receive and we receive it for review in 2025.
and
So
it's what
that's
happened.
very, very unacceptable. First of all, we all know the evidence is very stale, the loss, all that, and you know. And when it is before
And
the
so,
bare bone of the review is for lack of better term, ridiculous.
I agree. It's two things to reflect on. Number one, the appeal process, as we know, as attorneys, it's a longer process, right?
Right.
Because it starts with the lower courts, starts with the investigation. So by definition, it's going to be a longer time, right? And also depends, as you alluded to, on how long they take with it, right? But the critical thing that is in the response that you read from is that a lot of the cases that we have here, I think particularly even the ones you're going to go through today, they're cases that came through the co-op system, the agency that existed before OPAT, right?
Right.
So OPAT obviously OPAT didn't exist until 2022, really, in terms of taking complaints and, setting up the system and so on, right? So he's right in a sense, right? But, and again, I think that one in particular was the initial incident might have been in 2014 or 13. I know at least one of the ones that you see today, you see some of those things. But so we're now focusing, which is I talked to Esther about this, to try to put those cases through, those cases that came from the co-op, right? So that we deal less with those super old cases, and hopefully we can start seeing more of the recent cases.
No, I'm not saying it is our fault. I'm very sure that the kind of work that you and your staff have been conducting is exemplary. My concern is with the police internal affair component, and I don't know how much weight or how much influence, for lack of a better term, that this office has in relation to making any type of recommendation on the procedures or including investigation and policies and all that to the commissioner, and how receptive he is. I know the police have to deal with the union and all that, and it has always been controversial. But still, do we actually have some influential weight in our recommendation, or are we just pushing the paper? If we were pushing the paper, I'm very sorry, my time is not correct. That's my comment. That's very true.
I appreciate your comments. They're sincere and honest, and it's boom, makes sense. Right? That's sort of the challenge of it. Right? I didn't mention this in here, but you probably have seen in the news, the writings around the CRB recommendations in the letters that the CRBs do, right? So at the crux of it, to answer your question, number one, we can make recommendations, right? It's built into the ordinance, you can make recommendations. Number two, though, is that the commissioner sort of has the funds. Like that's just that fact is clear, right?
Mhm.
But but to kind of go to a couple words that you said there that I think is critical to think about is number one, the influence. Because now you have the debates in public, right? Like the letters that we write down, for instance, the one that the CRB wrote, it's been, we're still dealing with media writing and asking about, right? So now it's not just, so I guess we can press other spaces, right? And we don't even have to do it because there's a lot of interest in the work, right? So you can make a recommendation, right, around procedures, and that's a public debate, essentially, about what the commissioner can or cannot do or should do, right? And I think, which is where the transparency of our arm really helps us, right? Yes, we don't get to sort of change and say, here's what the commissioner should do, right, or has to do. We can't change internal policies in terms of the investigation or anything, right? But as we're sort of, particularly now, really built in, it's on to push our authority, the ones that, the space that we do have, you will see that influence play itself. I think right now, again, even though sometimes it can be a little stressful to be inside of it, with the media requests, with all these different things, but it's positive work that's happening in the public discussion around, particularly and I'm happy to sort of perhaps pick some of those articles if you haven't seen them, but there's in terms of what on the CRB side, for instance, that we produce, I think, 15, 16, 20 sustained cases. It's only been 2 all recommends that he agreed with. Like that, Fox 25 News was asking me about that now. All right, right. So it's sort of, so this built in, I think, again, the transparency part of the debate is really critical to think about, right? But could we have more authority? I welcome it, right? Like it would be great, right? But I think, as someone, as I said when I first started here, as someone who's been in this space, years ago as a prosecutor, worked for Christina, and was elected state rep, and sort of push for police reform. I think there's plenty here to move forward, and then hopefully, 5 years in, as we progress on, you can feel the heat. There'll be an opportunity to push for more and get things right. But our 4-letter of the law, there's some limitations there, but I think if we can push those authorities that we have, like the automatic appeal, start doing random appeals, right? When you see things in the news, which we're seeing them, right? In fact, I almost brought one that happened recently, right? If you see anything in the news that a review that they did, let's review those things, right? Again, and I just point one example. I'm blanket on the name of the case now, but it might be for free to present. It's there was one which involved an officer had been reprimanded for many times in the past, but there's still like same thing unfortunately happened with Pat Rose. Perhaps not as stark, but like where things they just get slapped on the wrist, or they just move, right? So so if you see something again on the news that because it's on the news all the time, right? Those are spaces I think that within your authority you could push and so we have the authority to review, right? Review what they do, right? And so then we put it in the public again, because all of discussions mostly is particularly letter recommendations and things like that. Those are public for consumption. So I get your frustration. I feel it. But I wouldn't run from it. I think there's plenty of space here for us with authority to push some things.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
also wanted to add that we're already seeing our work come to fruition, right? We're getting a response, right? That's already a win, right? That's a check, right?
Yeah.
We're getting a response, and there's an explanation to the response. There's a breakdown of why, they believe that case, right, was something that, and even in the response, he admits that, he thought it was unacceptable that this took so long, right? So we're moving the needle in the right direction. It's a situation now that, we're also having cadence meeting with the superintendent with regards to collaboration between our agency and their department as well. Okay. So that is another good news.
So will that happen soon?
We're having cadence meetings. So what we're doing,
happen.
yeah, they're like every 2 weeks. I'm meeting with Daniel, or just talking with him, or trying to. If there's certain things that we want to iron out, whether it's from the CRB side or the IAOP side. And these are not meetings with regards to exactly the board work, it's the process kind of things, so that the communication stays put, right? Like we're still waiting for a response letter on this. We need, So we're having these kind of cadence meetings. Another thing that's also positive is the fact that, Yvonne has already highlighted is the transparency piece, right? So now you have a situation of, our visibility, and that's why I always say to both board members from both the IOP panel, the IOP side as well as the CRB side, is that we do have a dashboard. We have visibility about the cases that we're having. The meetings are occurring, and the public can see, we're doing that work of whether we're reviewing an IAD investigation or we're actually going through the process of dealing with the complaints that we're dealing with. So, nothing's in vain right now because it's so important, especially for the public to know that they have this independent place where they can have members of the public as well to be able to make certain decisions about those cases, that this appeal doesn't stay in a black hole. And it seems like just with the beginning of the responses that we're getting right now, and with regards to the letter itself and the staleness you were saying about the review process and how long it took for DPD, as Yvonne indicated, on our end, we're dealing with the co-op cases that our initiative now is to push those through so that we can get to the meatier stuff, the things that are fresher in time, so that you guys can, have the lens on those and not have these things stay in a black hole. But from their end, they're also seeing that, there's a lot of things that they want to push now to as far as the reviews that they've done, that we can deal with those. We know that there's been a length of time and a gap, in those reviews, but they're wanting to move the needle in the right direction as well, right? Moving forward. So we know that the past isn't great about how things have been working, but the future looks hopeful, right? And the present is imperative now that we, take reins in the present as to what we're asking for, what kind of communication we're having, and how do we want this all to work.
No, I appreciate the fact that, right, and I applaud the establishment of OPAT because the co-op, the co-op before that existed, before this office, I think it was a paper tiger. I'm very sorry, but I say that's my personal opinion. That was a paper tiger. And when I come in here, I was hoping that, and I see that this is not a paper tiger. This is an office that does actually, even the fact that I spent 40 years of my life in public work, and mostly in legal work as well, dealing with police and civil rights issues. I understand how slow the snail pace is. But regardless of that, I applaud the fact that you guys are moving the needle. And little things like, he acknowledged,
Right.
The deficiency here and all that. I understand all that, but acknowledging it, doing something about it is two things different.
Right.
Two very different things. So I was hoping that I will copy this letter. I will send it to the mayor myself, and I'll ask her directly. I have a personal, I have personal relationship with her, so I'll send it to her. And is there anything that that this office should have on top of what we are doing? Because you guys are doing it, real work. And I know Michael Cox. I know back when he was he was beating the hell out of him well, everybody knows. So he was beaten by some police officers, and I understand that. And when he was appointed commissioner, I was very hopeful. That he would change the office, but the 4 years already, 5 years going into 5 years, and I haven't seen real changes. So that's my concern. So I'll do what I can to give this office a little more weight. If not, then there's no point for me to sit here. I'd rather spend my time with the group meeting, which has taken a lot of time for myself. But I enjoy this work, and I like to support you, and I know that you are doing a heck of a and as a matter of fact, when you talk about Judge Harris, he's also a friend of mine. I remember the first time he and I sit down to do community mediation together. And I remember, we did community mediation on a number of community issues in Dorchester. And I always remember his smile. The guy has a very, very nice smile. And his temperament. Nobody can achieve that.
Right. I agree.
So if it's your mentor, then it's my mentor as well. But back to this. We are doing the actual work, but the concrete outcome is not there. So I sympathize that. I empathize that, but there should be something more.
If I could, briefly about the transition between the co-ops. So I'm the only person here who was on
On
the
board.
co-op. And briefly, before it transitioned into OPAT, the ordinance of the co-op was incredibly limited as to what the internal affairs, what the co-op could do.
Right.
The transition I'm seeing is that this ordinance provides much more breadth and depth
Right.
to provide that comment to
Right.
and I think the growing pains are
Yep.
right from, well, we used to have this, right? It used to be very limited. Now it's more expansive. And what I've seen us under our current leadership that has also shifted between OPAT when it first started versus under the past year under current leadership is that there's more systematic accountability, or we're asking for more systematic accountability.
Right.
Before we were, I think, much more focused on accountability of officer conduct versus accountability of the investigations and
Right.
how they're run, right? Which we are doing more now. Of course, there's going to be some back and forth, some growing pains
No,
from
good.
that because it's a
Of course.
new thing.
Of course.
But I'm certainly, as you very well point out, I'm glad we're doing it.
Mm.
And I think we're going to have, there's going to be that back and forth. Hopefully, right, the accountability helps grow the system into something where we don't have 6 years.
Exactly.
Right,
Right.
right, the pressure is now on in a way that this really is new.
Right.
It has not, this office or how, for whatever reason, it has not been done before. So I do also have comments.
Thank you for saying that. I think the pressure you feel, you're pushing. We're pushing right back. Okay, then we take it to another step. Right now, we want to do some random stuff. Okay, how we gonna do the random? We're gonna do it our way. Right. So I think I think to me, again, the pressure of day to day sometimes is a little stressful, but as someone said, I've seen it. This is good. Right. It's not dormant. It's not doing it. It's not reactive either. We're pushing out. We're being strategic. We're going to expand. Of course, the system, and it's not about the commission system. So the system is also designed to sort of push back, right? So it's going to create a balance. But I think again, a year and a half, May will be 2 years. Is what we're doing this, right? So we're going to be pushing. We're not going to just sit here and pushing papers. So the debates are happening, and I think it's very helpful.
So I think along the lines of what Member Tran was talking about, is there any visibility into their workload? Do they have a dashboard? IAD has these many open cases. These number of cases are 30 days old. This number of cases are 60 days old. These number of cases are 90 days old. Like, what are the metrics that they're using to determine how long it's taking for an investigation to go? Like, in other instances, like for example, on the ethics commission, like their enforcement division, they track their cases by, they have a backlog of cases that are X number of days outside, So where are they in the process? So they could, at a moment's notice, they could give a snapshot of, every time we have a monthly meeting, it's like, we have, these number of cases that are 38 old, these number of cases that are 6 months old, right? And they keep their backlog, right? They try to keep their backlog of X number of how many cases within each kind of segment, and that is a level of accountability, right? So then, if IAB has a case that is 6 months old, we should be able to say 6 months is not good enough, or maybe 6 months is good enough, like whatever the appropriate metrics are. That if they have that separate from what we should have as well, so like once it gets to this commission, once it gets to OPAT, how long are we taking to move through the cases, right? So we should be tracking that on our side.
Yes.
And then they should also be tracking it on their side. So then we will see the whole picture before it gets here 6 years later. We run it through in 20 days, but 6 years plus 20 days.
Okay,
Right.
so this is great. I think, two things. There's some information which Michael just sent me, that the Grover's done around some of that stuff. In terms of how many cases gone through, over the years. They did a 10-year span of cases. In the media, again, a lot of this is some media, some information. But what you just articulated is, we need to learn. We need to get more data around just what you just framed alone. And that's something within our space. Right. So, okay, literally, I mean, obviously this is being recorded, so we can kind of, you said a lot of good stuff over it, and I was trying to take note of it. But that could be a recommendation, that could be letters saying, okay, can we get what is the current active case? What is average, kind of just reflecting again, what is the average amount of cases, time that the cases are being closed, right? I will say that, to positive note, Post Commission for State did say that they need 90 days to do investigations, right? And as I mentioned, actually I didn't mention this, mentioned in the last meeting, I am in contact with Post, so slowly building a rapport with them to understand their infrastructure and how we can work together. But what you just said, to piggyback on what Sheila said, and it's like that's a systematic issue, right? But in order to do that, we need to sort of learn. We need to understand what the groundwork. So perhaps for next meeting, to piece that together, to sort of do a letter saying we need this, and this kind of data. Then we take it, then we sort of say, okay, here's what we think should happen. Right. So this is perfect in a sense, right? In terms of being able to move the work beyond, looking specifically at a case from 2014 that co-op did, right? That came through a co-op and it's now still, and there's not much that we would do in a sense, right? Because officers are retired, literally people sometimes have died, so that happens. So, but that Christina says, so I'm thinking systems. Like, how do we put stuff in place that we're not just looking at every case, and then we have a larger debate, and this is just the tease. But based on that tease, we see what we've been able to do. Right, then the next step. So what's the next? And then we push. And we hopefully again, as maybe will stay on, and we'll continue to push and come up. By the time you actually move on, we are, and obviously all of your term limited. And I'm not saying here forever, but we put systems in place that next time the next people that come in, they're not trying to just send letters from the basics. They're not trying to figure out the basic stuff. They're not trying to figure out how to do random checks. They're not trying to, okay, now we're not doing automatic appeal. Like, I think for me, I can beg you for that, but I'm just thinking system that they're in place and the work continues, right? Because we're dealing with a real system, irrespective of the commission, irrespective of the mayor, any of us, right? So, but we are new to the system, right? And we were created for a purpose. People had to die. And, we have more power than before. We still have limited power. But within our authority, there's a lot of work.
Question: have you made any attempt to reach out to the head of IAB to try to put together some sort of system? And is there reluctance for the?
No, I think I have, but and as I said, particularly since the new superintendent came in, and that's the came in, thankfully, right, like 6 months ago. We're going in that direction. Before a lot of the discussions we've had, which thankfully now that the meetings are almost bi-weekly. It's about some of the even minor stuff about, getting occupancy, just the basics, right? So I haven't had a lot of chances to think strategically about the next level, right? The stuff that we're talking about. Like for instance, we're still trying to get them, which hopefully early next year, we do training to get all of you, both this side and the CRB side, to go do training. We're trying to figure out what's the training going to be. So a lot of what we've been doing is the basics, is rebuilding. But I will say, I think, largely, there is an appetite for further debate and for collaboration, particularly the head of IAB crowd. So, but I think, hopefully we can digest this. And as it did tell me this, that not to take too much time. So I don't want to keep, we're coming into 11, so I don't want to keep holding the process. But this is the kind of conversation that leads to the next thing. And we intend on doing it. Okay.
Before he leaves, Mr. Tran, do you have any other questions of him or comments?
That's fine.
Mr. Miller? Mr. Hanshaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honestly, I'm very encouraged by the debate we have.
I guess I do have one question. We had scheduling future IAOP meetings.
Yes,
Can we
yes.
do that
Why don't we do that
while
now?
we're meeting?
Yes, why don't we do that? Thank you.
Like on January, people like third week on, right?
Yes,
So maybe in February.
actually, their cadence is, yeah, so CRB 1 month, IIB next month. So we're looking for you guys, February. And
Drop the 4 meetings for you, right? All right. Do people have a schedule where they can try to do the whole year right now?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm sorry? Rain dates? Okay.
Monday, like a backup date.
come back up there.
Yeah.
So if we're doing quarterly, first 3 months, January, February, March,
We're looking at February.
February?
Yeah.
And it'd be helpful if it was on Wednesdays, Monday or Wednesdays. Wednesdays is actually perfect.
Wednesday is better than Monday.
Okay,
Yeah,
I would
Can't
think
do
for most people. right?
Wednesday's definitely better.
How about you?
I'll have to reach it. Right now.
Don't we
Mondays
normally
and
do
Tuesdays are my
CRB on
best
Wednesdays
days.
though?
But Thursdays I have
Don't we
a-
normally do CRBs on Wednesdays?
It is a Monday, you're a Wednesday.
So like alternating
Yeah.
Wednesdays and.
Tran,
Or Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday.
I prefer Wednesday, but as a matter of fact, any day of the week.
So let's try to look at Wednesdays for now, but then we have to have Charlotte, we'll try to coordinate with them, figure out how we can.
may I just throw out a date of February 18th?
Wednesday, February 18th.
Yes.
That's fine.
Remember, I'm fine.
And what time was for you to talk about even if I know that you said Wednesday, you're not going to do the whole day.
I have a standing commitment from 1 to 4 on Wednesday.
Oh, okay, so then we.
I
can
teach
still-
at 4.
Okay, so what we'll do is, we can still
Earlier.
do it, yeah, from 10, and as long as we have, forum, we need 3 or 5, you know what I mean? We can still calendar it in and we can swap up and try to make sure that what time we do that, okay?
And if we wanted a backup date on that,
Yeah.
you want to pick the 25th?
That's fine.
Wednesday, okay.
Absolutely.
It's a school vacation, week. I can't remember when it is.
Anyone?
The 19th is when. The 19th, will be the 19th.
Or with the 19th, we got it for people.
No, the 19th is, okay.
19th, no?
I can't do the 19th.
Okay.
So the first date that we have to check,
So we want
18.
18th.
18th,
Right,
right?
it's fine for a little bit. Eventually. Yeah, we'll just go back and forth.
Backup day, right? Yes.
So we pop ahead 3 to May, perhaps, the next?
Yeah.
So wait, sorry, what was the proposed backup date for the first 25th? Okay.
So,
May 3rd, may I suggest May 13th?
yes.
Yeah.
Is that a yes all the way around?
Yes.
Backup date, exactly 1 week later at May 20th?
I'll be gone for the next 2 weeks, so just go ahead and
Yeah.
schedule it without them.
Back up on May 24th for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't jump ahead another 3 months.
August.
So August. Now we're getting into summer vacation, which is tough. How about August?
September. No.
Or the last week of August. Or the first, I mean,
Yeah,
because
the
September, the first week in September, you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But probably.
Yeah. How about, may I suggest August 5? As a backup, we pick August 12th. So far, I'm sticking to Wednesday, so. That would then put us in a final meeting of the year in November. November 11th is Veterans Day. May I suggest the 18th?
Yes.
I think we have to stay away for a backup date of the 25th, though.
December 2nd.
Works for me. December 2nd, folks?
Like that, right?
Yes.
Now, question, in terms of being able to review documents.
Can I ask what the
I
backup date
received
was for the
notification on
last one?
Thursday, and my Friday had
What
already.
was the December 2nd? Thank you.
We'll go.
That's like one day before. What do people think? Is it possible to have those done 2 days before or? I'm sorry? Oh,
That's
okay.
what I was saying earlier, that what the plan will be, this was gonna be, several days before the meeting. Okay, and essentially, obviously, we can exclude it if you will. You'll have 5 days to come in.
Gotcha.
Right, so say the meeting is Wednesday, you can come, I would say,
Thursday.
so you got Tuesday, you got that Monday, and hopefully you have that Friday and Thursday.
Gotcha.
Right, to sort of come. So that'll be the cadence. But you will get an email either, likely from Shonda, or us, someone just saying it's available. Right, and you also will try not to book you all at the same time, particularly because it's so easy to get quorum here. So we'll have to avoid that, but, it'll be a couple hours dedicated to you. You coordinate with staff, you come in and bang things out and go.
I do want to know,
Perfect.
Kamika will not be making it in. I just got a text from her. Her daughter's not feeling well. So
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Jamaica won't be making it in.
Yeah.
Her daughter's
Okay.
not feeling
All
well.
right, thank you. And so you'll get those emails much earlier. Right,
Yes.
Okay. All right, our next item of the agenda is to be going over to the appellate case review.
We have a little rescue.
I would
Okay.
move that we,
Move to executive session.
retire into executive session. There's
I'll second that.
Okay, no more second.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Aye.
You want a roll call? Ms. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Tran,
Aye.
Mr. Hackshaw.
Aye.
And myself, yes, it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll have a break.
Yes.
Yeah.